Well, thank you very much for joining the conversation. We get into the big stories for today, and we start on the standpoint of the economy. We've had the various rating agencies, the three big ones, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, and Moody's give us their ratings. It appears, though, that government is not in agreement with some of the ratings, and it feels it is being hard done. In fact, we've cited a document purportedly from the African Peer Review Mechanism, which also backs that call. But why the hasty retreat now that is being beaten by this administration, especially as in the past it has touted these same ratings? We talk about this, we talk about Parliament reconvening, and we talk about the long-standing impasse when it comes to UTAG. The University Students Association of Ghana also threatening a strike on the back of these developments. We get into the issues with our guests this morning. Dr. Dixon Adomaku Kisi is Member of Parliament for Anyaso Utuom. He represents, should I say, the MPP end or government end? Government, right. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you.
We also have Hassan Suini, Member of Parliament, Tamale North, representing the other end, the NDC's end.
Right.
Okay. I had to state that categorically because, I mean, we all know how these play out. But I'm hoping that even as we touch on these matters, it will not be like Amadako of the MPP said recently. It will not be politics as usual, but we'll get to the bare bones of the matters and address them. After all, it is Ghana we are talking about. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining the conversation. Now, we start from that rating by Moody's, a CAA1. What fundamentally, Dr. Dixon, is your problem with the rating? Especially as in the past, like Oliver Barker-Vormawor said this morning, you have organized kenke parties and all of that, celebrating, some of these ratings in the past when they went in your favor. Now you say, when I was speaking to Honorable John Kuma yesterday, Deputy Finance Minister, that it is propagandist, it is an attempt to, paint African countries with a certain brush and all of that. How did we get to this point?
Well, thanks for having me here. Before I move into this, my heart goes out to the people of Nsawam. I think yesterday there was a tragic incident there. Our chief whip manages that constituency.
4 dead, 9 injured.
Yes, he's been hit by that. And I think travel safety is very important. We need to take it serious as a country. Now, coming back to the economic indicators, I'm of a different thought. I mean, and I've always been like that since I've been following these ratings. I'm a student of Warren Buffett, and he says that the score lines are not very important when you are really in the thick of making decisions. And why does he say that? He's a long-term investor, and his reasons for not making decisions based on ratings is the fact that when you make managerial decisions that are heavy, in the interim, the rating agencies might not necessarily appreciate the decisions made by management. And as such, if you manage your company based on ratings, you're going to be in trouble. And rightly so. We had the Enrons that had A+ ratings and dipped overnight. There are numerous companies that had very good scores and dipped.
But there are, I'm not trying to curtail your train of thought, but there are exceptions to every norm. And the fact that Enron suffered what it did doesn't mean that the ratings are not plausible.
No. And don't get me wrong here. What arguments I'm making is the fact that, listen, we are in a situation where ratings are definitely important. However, Ghana's economic trajectory has been hit by a number of things. Lastly, the disagreements in Parliament with regards to how government can raise some revenue. And I kept saying that, you know what, whether the opposition likes it or not, when we tank together as a country. And so the decisions that the opposition has taken are going to still impair the whole country in terms of our access to finances.
But they agree with you on that. In fact, they've been calling recently that if you look at the latest release from the former president, John Dramani Mahama, he is saying, don't be so stubborn. Listen to their side as well. for broader measures that can bring the country out of the doldrums, so that, because they know very well that even if they inherit an economy from you, they will be affected. I mean, that is what they've been saying.
Well,
so it's nothing new, is it?
Well, if that was the case, then I was of the opinion that, listen, government proposes to add revenue through a certain mechanism. You've shown your disinterest, your dislike for the process, which is the, raising or mobilizing funds through the E-levy.
Right.
Fair enough. Once you've done that, let's be mindful of the fact that if we don't move the process along, these are the kinds of results we're going to get as a nation. Because right now, Fitch, Moody's, S&P, bank on one key thing: how much revenue government is going to make, and then what's your indebtedness. And these are the very core rationales or reasons why we are where we are. But with that said, let me add a key thing, that the investments in education are very difficult to quantify in terms of the real returns. And that is a huge chunk, one of the flagship programs that the president has embarked on.
Are you talking of free SHS?
Yes, and that, by all means, any country in the world that has embarked on human capital investment has suffered some of these consequences. And I think that, so be it. In 10 years, we will see the huge benefits to these kinds of investment that the president...
You've technically not answered my question. So when it comes to these ratings, do you agree with them or disagree? Do you think they got it right? Moody's, for example, with a CAA1 rating for Ghana. Mind you, yes, they have tweaked their mechanisms when it comes to the ratings, but it's practically the same Moody's, same institution, same assessment methods. What has changed, and why are you going after them?
No, I'm not going after them.
No, I'm saying
my only point is that when you're making very huge managerial decisions, when you're in the thick of a sports game, and you are focused on just looking at the score lines, you miss out on the opportunity of making your scores. And that is why, once we're in government and governing, I think that our priority, our preoccupation, should not be necessarily about the ratings. And I've cited many instances where, clearly, when you make managerial decisions based on your ratings, and that will not help you for a company or for a country. And Ghana has made a huge sacrifice in the past 5 years with regards to our human capital, our human potential. And I really think that it's unfortunate. It is not measurable in terms of these indicators. It's not.
Okay.
And it's not just us. Many countries that had, at some point, like the Singaporeans, who at some point had decided that, listen, let's hit hard on our human capital, and made sure that they invested in training a lot of skilled workers. During those times, they were not rated very well in the S&Ps, Moody's, or Fitch. But over time, when they started realizing the gains of those investments, the ratings became...
So that is where we are now.
And I really think that, unfortunately, one, at this point in time, our difficulty is trying to show that we can, clear our indebtedness appropriately. And I was always hang on one thing with the E-levy. I kept saying that in the investment world, when they see that Ghanaians are putting their money where their mouth is, with regards to a lot more people buying into giving a little for our development, that signal alone would have shot our ratings to AA. You understand? And unfortunately, that bit of the sale, in terms of telling people that, listen, the E-levy is a demonstration of our intent and goodwill towards our own development. And that has fell on deaf ears, unfortunately.
Let me bring in Ala Hassan at this point. Do you subscribe to these ratings agencies and what they do? And mind you, we go to them. They have their own, there are outfits that they assess for free. But we go to them, African countries, we pay close to $500,000, $400,000 to $500,000 annually just to get them to give us these ratings. Why? Because the ratings also reflect what we can do in terms of our capitalization when we go on the foreign market. Your own administration has suffered some of these ratings, whether Bs. Fortunately, a lot of the time you found yourself in B territory. But now we're looking at CAA1. And some industry watchers are very concerned. We spoke to Professor Lord Mensah, who says we shouldn't be fighting these institutions. We should rather be looking at doing the right things to ensure that they give us proper ratings. Same corroborated by Dr. Suming and others. Do you feel we're being too, we're antagonizing them instead of embracing their reports?
Well, good morning again to you. Good morning to Doc and to our viewers, especially the very good people of the Tamale North constituency. I was listening to Doc, and I was not surprised when he started on the note of blame the opposition. You know, blame the NDC for everything. Even in opposition, we are responsible for the economic hardships.
Are you not?
How are we?
But they say that you left them in a deep hole, and they're still trying to claw Ghana out of that hole.
That's a shame. I mean, because anybody who looked at the forecast of all these institutions, World Bank, Moody's, is aware that the forecast was good for Ghana by the time the NDC was leaving office. The 8% GDP growth in 2017 was predicted by 2016 by all these institutions. The last time we had a discussion on rating agencies, Moody's had rated Ghana B negative with a positive outlook.
With a stable outlook.
With a stable outlook. With a stable outlook. And we had a conversation around whether it was good or it was bad. And I recall what Dr. Bawumia then said. It was just Ghana was B negative with a stable outlook. The discussion around whether that was a good, a rate for Ghana to take to the market was that heated that Dr. Bawumia actually told President Mahama to stop embarrassing himself, quote and unquote, that he should stop embarrassing himself. And what did President Mahama say? He was not attacking the rating agencies. He was simply saying that B- with a stable outlook is not bad. And he said, stop embarrassing yourself. So today when I hear the president and Akufo-Addo say, no, these guys, that is anti-colonial legacy, we must not take it. And then you hear the finance ministry say, no, I mean, we have to challenge them. It is not fair on us. It is propaganda. I'm left wondering how to react.
We have the option of doing that. We have the option of challenging. In fact, they do these ratings in consonance with, they collaborate with us. They speak to our end just to ensure that the figures they are putting out are correct. They will talk to our economic management teams. But in the instance of Moody's, unlike, I think, Fitch, they have stuck to the C rating. And they are saying it is on the back of certain, of course, the requisite details they look at.
Exactly. I mean, we are entitled to challenge if we think that something has gone wrong. But I just find it quite hypocritical, the stance of government, especially in relation to the positions they adopted when we were not even this worstly rated when they were in opposition. I just find it, grossly hypocritical. And I don't know how to react to such double standards coming from them. And I can only agree with one who said this morning on Facebook that when the fundamentals are weak, you argue with rating agencies. That is for me what is happening now. And you see, I cannot agree with President Mahama more when he says this government needs to climb down from their high horses and engage. And let us all see together how we can, rise above or out of this ditch that they have put us in. I mean, this government in 2020 alone had the biggest windfall that, Ghana has ever had. In 1 year, 33 billion Ghana cedis and over.
And if I may just give the breakdown of that, 2020 to 2021, per that same document you're referencing. So a $1 billion concessional facility from the IMF, another $1 billion in SDR allocation, $430 million from the World Bank, which can be stretched to $560 million, $250 million from the Stabilization Fund, $10 billion from the Central Bank, totaling in Ghana cedi equivalents, $33 billion. I'll come back to you on that.
So when he says that these rating agencies are only looking at how well we are able to, raise revenue. It's not correct. They have seen how we have raised revenue in the last 3 years. But they have also seen how we have wasted the revenue that has come to us.
But they've also seen, for example, how we've not been able to get our E-levy on track. If we had got it on track by October, these ratings definitely wouldn't be what we are seeing, because they look at forecasts and your ability to repay debts. Now, if we had the E-levy on board, they would be able to factor that in, and we wouldn't be getting some of the ratings we are getting. And I'm saying this in consonance with the fact that your end in Parliament has prevented them in government from passing the E-levy.
You see, if you had 33 billion in the previous year and you blew it, and we all know how they blew it, the Auditor General report is there to tell us how they blew it. It is a shame for you to excuse your failings in your inability to pass a levy that wouldn't have even raised 6 billion by now. Even though you are expecting 6 billion from that levy, as we speak.
Billion,
yes, as we speak, you wouldn't have even raised it by now. So to say that, if that,
but it's a year-long projection, and it's a projection that in the space of the year they are hoping to get. You can't say that by now. I mean, that wasn't the projection.
No, but
to be fair,
then you didn't listen to me. I'm saying that if you blew 33 billion in the previous year,
right,
and we all know how they blew it, because the Auditor General report is there.
That is unfair.
It is unfair to excuse your deficiencies today,
right,
based on a levy that wouldn't have raised 6 billion by today. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I am unaware that it is a year-long projection, but I'm saying that if you could not manage 33 billion, the rating agencies obviously will wonder how just 6 billion, even if you have it within the year, can make any difference.
Can be the cure,
can be the panacea to the problems that you are faced with. But then again, it is unfair to say that the minority NDC prevented the government from passing it.
Is that not what you've done?
That is not what we have done.
What have you done?
Don't you pride yourself?
The minority NDC has simply opposed the levy with the 137 members of Parliament.
Right.
Just in line with the opposition majority of Ghanaians have expressed.
Right.
The NPP, on the other hand, fortunately, have 137 plus an independent member who caucuses with them. It is as a result of the inability of the government to mobilize the 138 to get it passed. It is not the opposition that has refused or the government to get it passed.
Point made in that respect.
It is another example of the inefficiencies that we speak of.
So their failure to pass the E-levy is because of their inefficiency.
It is their failure.
Their failure to master numbers in Parliament.
It is their failure.
All right.
And not the opposition stance.
Doc, how did you, and let's streamline the conversation following from what he said.
Okay.
How did you manage blowing 33 billion Ghana cedis? What do you have to show for it? And let's put this into context. The World Bank, for example, Pierre Laporte is saying the $435 million is being investigated, is going to be investigated to find out whether you used it actually to give the sort of COVID-19 relief that as a country we needed. And he even adds that if it is found that you did not use the funds or part of the funds for the right purposes, Ghana would have to dole out a refund, which for me is unheard of. But that is where it is inching towards. How do you account for this?
I've always been very happy with the institution that was created, which is now the GEA government. What was it? It used to be NBSSI. Government agency for entrepreneurial related things, and I can only take my mind back to when people were getting text messages where their account had been loaded with about 2,000 Ghana cedis. Some got 6,000, some got up to the tune of about 20,000. And those were big time reliefs. And it came when people needed it. And in fact, it became one of the problems within the MPP because some people thought that it should have been just for quote unquote party faithfuls. But the president did something remarkable. He made sure that that credit facility was available to everybody. And in fact, in some constituencies, we think that we lost because it appeared that NDC sympathizers rather got the money more so than the MPP sympathizers.
It would be good to look at the list and find out who exactly got what, how much, and get into.
But people did get those funds. In addition, we had a president who took a bold decision to give us a break from paying for water because it was essential to the fight of COVID.
Right.
And in hindsight, we might say that that bill ticket was too much. And assuming that role was a high-risk decision. I mean, even in the Americas, I don't think we had them telling them that, hey, we'll pay your water bill. It didn't happen anywhere.
But they were given certain reliefs, monetary packages that could very well have taken care of some of those bills.
We got monetary packages, and we also got this relief from buying water, because telling people to wash their hands and not providing the added services. And let me add one key thing, that in addition, they created places where you could go fetch water if there was crisis. I mean, you're in a community where you didn't have water. These are things we saw Fili Gadochi. What even kills me the most, when you go to educational services, looking at the sanitizers that were provided, looking at the tissues that were provided, soap that was provided, huge amount, which just shows you some of the ways in which the monies were utilized, primarily for the fight of COVID and the economic hardships.
Do you know the problem I always have with this end of the conversation? When I spoke to John Kuma, for example, Dr. John Kuma, it's the breakdown. And he was referencing that the budget will not capture everything. We should go to the health ministry, for example. These are some of the problems that I feel are created because some of the things you mentioned, and we bought sanitizers and we bought PPE and we did all of these. It's the breakdown. The devil often is in the details. And that is where the World Bank is taking you. But let me just quickly ask you. The utilities you mentioned, the water and the electricity and everything, it's supposed to have been sourced from World Bank money, what they gave us, and the others. If we paid for them, if the World Bank paid for them, why are we having to pay for that again?
Well, one key thing, and I need to reiterate this, that the period, we had, the president did it for 3 months, and then he added more. And in as such, I don't think the 1 million, and we get hung up with dollars and cedis. The amount in USD is quite small compared to,
Which amount are you?
No, what I'm saying is that when you say 33 billion, it sounds like a huge amount of money.
But I mean, it's an exchange rate. You can just divide by 6 point something and you'll get.
And in real terms, I mean, if you look at the monthly expenditure for water in the whole country, my goodness, I don't have the actual number, but I can imagine it's not even in a day. If you decide to pay water bills for people in this country for 1 day, I'm sure it's a huge amount of money. And I think I'm with you. The breakdown would help all of us. But granted, we can't turn a blind eye to all the things that the president did in terms of even helping some hoteliers, some industry players that were really downtrodden, and even companies that were also supported to cushion the blow of COVID. So these are things that hopefully even Trade Ministry, I'm sure, might have some answers as well. So I think in all fairness, you are very right. It's appropriate that as part of being more transparent and accountable to the Ghanaian people, that we bring a breakdown. And I think I'll be with you on that level. But coming back to some of the things Suhini said, I mean, if you don't mind.
Just make it brief, because I want us to bring in the E-levy conversation as you go back.
Sure. So more importantly, this E-levy program is one of the things that would have been much better in the interest of the country that the two parties showed, commitment to. And I think in all of our efforts, our biggest thing is to hope that it becomes something that we all agree on and pass, and not, quote unquote, it being necessarily party and government decision.
Right.
And that is one of the things that our men on the other side, or women on the other side, have not been able to support us. Even when we've agreed to make some minor adjustments to the initial bill that was brought to the House. I mean, adjustments where now, if I'm sending from one network to another network in my own name, I'm not charged, where salaries will not be debited, and all these other additional concessions that have been made. And truly, in principle, I think the Finance Ministry has showed that he's listened, he's backed down on some things, yet none of that has even moved the opposition one bit. And these are still signals which impact the ratings, the same ratings that I'm talking about. And more importantly, it's unfortunate that he would say that even with the E-levy, we would not have had good ratings. It's not true.
Right.
It's not true.
Your point is made, but for example, when you say that you're going to cut public expenditure by 20%, we still haven't seen that. I mean, are you waiting for a mid-year budget review? How are we going to see this? As of now, as of today, that is not applicable, is it? So these are some of the things the ratings agencies looked at. You've said 20% by word of mouth, but there's no documentation to back your 20%.
No,
so these are some problems from your end as well.
The E-levy bill, which now, I mean, before we broke on Friday, clearly the opposition party does not want to even see it, not at all read it.
Right.
And in fact, I don't know about Suhini, but a lot of the MPs on the other side that I've interacted with clearly have not even bothered to double check the contents and the adjustments that the finance minister has made. It's just they are deaf to anything that has been done. And I think that that is not a good stand, and a good show of trying to at least even hear us out.
Okay.
And that's not good.
I'll come to you, Honorable Suhini, but I just want you to sneak in this bit before we move ahead, lest I forget. In former President Mahama's piece that he put out, he also talks about the need for a post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan that would lay down a firm blueprint for fiscal consolidation in the face of a worsening economic situation. Why do we still not have one?
We have one.
Where is it?
I mean, I don't know if he's been...
do we have an extensive plan? Like he points to a few years ago when there was a Senchi discussion where their government, their administration invited people from even your fold to come and dialogue with them about the way forward for the nation.
Yeah, we have a finance minister who, has admitted that times are hard because of COVID, and has made adjustments. I mean, last year... I am not contesting the... I'm showing.
I'm just saying that do we have a recovery plan? That's the question.
I mean, we are on a recovery, and that's what the budget
do we have a plan? It's not about being on a recovery. Where's the plan?
Yes. I mean, part of it is making homegrown solutions. And the finance minister has reiterated this severally, that we can't continue to depend on foreign donations, we can't continue to depend on foreign loans to do an African problem. And he's pushing for a homegrown solution. And the first step in even trying, the position says no. And how then do you then even conversate more? It's making it difficult. Because the stand is that, hey, let's find a homegrown solution to our problem.
Right.
And those who are supposed to come to the table for a homegrown solution are saying no to the first move. And business is about signaling. If you agree to a common ground to make a decision and you say you don't even come to a common ground, how then do I even budge to your side? And I think that the NDC ought to come to terms with one key thing. And I think that's one of the things that are baffling them. Listen, when you lose an election, you've lost.
Right.
and give the executive the opportunity to implement and then be held accountable.
Okay.
And that is what they are failing to do.
Thank
give
you.
the executive the opportunity and then hold them accountable. That's what we should do.
We have this little video. If it's ready, maybe in the next minute or two, I will just have us
look at it.
Look at it, because it dovetails into the conversation on the E-levy. But before we get to it, moving away from this so that we can segue into the E-levy. Transport fares are set to go up by 30%. We've heard from Kwikwajo Manduya, CEO of the oil marketing companies, who is saying that, and as some people have joked, that fuel prices per litre could break the 8. It's just a joke that is out there now. It's not looking good in that regard. But on the back of all of these, this could have easily been you, the NDC, in power. After all, it's more of a two-horse race when it comes to our politics. In their shoes, what would you have done?
First of all,
I mean, there's been a lot of talk. In their shoes, what would you have done with all these problems?
First of all, we wouldn't have put the nation in these shoes, given the goodwill and then the windfalls that they enjoyed. I mean, with very little resources. We all saw how the NDC, put the country back on track. At the time, we did not have 3 oil wells. We just had 1. At the time, cocoa prices were low.
Right.
At the time, oil prices skyrocketed beyond government's projections. And so we did not have all these windfalls. Our airports, what do you call it?
Terminal 3.
No, the harbors. Our ports were not as expanded to bring in the revenue that it is bringing in. We had just started the paperless, thing, so we didn't get the benefits. But despite the little resources, and you see, I don't want it to even put the numbers to it, but we know the numbers, that will confuse people. I just want people to appreciate how much more this government has had by way of revenue streams, raising money for them, compared to how much the NDC had to raise revenue. So definitely, if we manage the little the way we did to get us out of the economic woes at the time, for the international rating agencies to forecast a positive outlook, if we had this more, you can only imagine that we would not have put the country into this situation. But nonetheless, we are in this situation because I believe that the NPP came into power at a very good time. It's like when you inherit a lot from your parents without any hard work, you don't appreciate what went into the things you are enjoying.
Really?
It is only when you begin to run out of the resources that your parents toiled, to put at your disposal, that you begin to come face to face with reality. And I think that is what this government is faced with.
Hold on just a sec. Dr. Dixon, when you say a chest that was empty. It is technically not correct. If it were empty, you wouldn't have had anything to run government business on. So let's watch the rhetoric. It could not have been empty.
I didn't want to
maybe it's not what you wanted, but just to point out to you, it could not have been empty.
I didn't want to pay attention to it, but we all know how much they inherited from the youth and YEA. We know how much they inherited from the stabilization levy, which came to their aid when Ghana had COVID. We know. I mean, there's so much now to defeat the propaganda that they inherited nothing. So I didn't even want to pay attention to what he said. I saw it as a needless distraction because the people of Ghana know better. But the point has to be made that if we had the luck, let me call it luck, that they had, with oil prices doing well, with cocoa prices doing well.
So the point is, what is the way forward? Put yourself in. Well,
you interrupted me. In fact, I was going to the way forward.
All the booms, but things are not working. So how do we?
I just needed to reiterate the point that they have brought us to this point, and it is not automatic that if we were there, we would have been here. Now, when the things were difficult, and genuinely so, because I have already pointed to the reasons why things were difficult. Oil prices had skyrocketed, cocoa was not doing well, and all of that. And then we had the single spine salary structure that had created some imbalance in our expenditure and all of that. What did President Mahama do? And that is what he's calling for. And I think sometimes that's the problem with this government. They simply don't seem to understand governance. He called for a consensus building and created a platform, the Royal Senchi, platform, where everyone who was affected by the economy or who thought he had something to contribute to the way out was invited. Needless to say, the NPP boycotted, and up till today, Mr. Kwame Pianim,
I think it was Kwame Pianim.
I said up till today he's paying for it, for showing up. So they boycotted, but I can assure them that the NDC doesn't have that character. And so if they create that enabling platform, they will get the cooperation needed to develop a homegrown solution. You see, they are speaking
what is your homegrown solution?
They are speaking as if to raise 6.7 billion, the only way to do so is to pass an E-levy.
What is your homegrown solution?
In the form, I mean, the NDC has not met. The NDC has not met now to come up with a homegrown solution. So if I say what I think,
are you telling me, Al Hassan, that in the midst of all the banter on the E-levy,
they don't have an alternative.
You really can't.
They don't have an alternative.
Expand on what's the NDC's alternative.
They don't have an alternative.
Would have been.
That's all.
You know, I've been on this set before. I was here last week. We spoke about the alternative. I told you the alternative.
Tell us.
We proposed on the table. So it's unfair to say the NDC has not met
but those watching
to come up with alternatives. No, I get you. I get you. But what the point, you see, I was developing a point when you came. I said the NDC has not met to decide a homegrown solution that will get us out. And that is not the intention of the NDC. The NDC's intention is to get all Ghanaians at a platform where we will all talk, because we do not assume to know it all, like our homework in power. We are saying that these are some of the ideas we have, some of the ideas I spoke of on this platform. Even where you want to charge E-levy, maybe electronic levy, why are you targeting transactions when there are alternatives? Why are you not targeting the fees that are charged by the mobile telecom operators? Why are you not segregating those who are using the platform for business? The merchants, for example, because we are doing SIM registration now. So it is easy to isolate the merchants from those who use it for daily, activities. And perhaps on that basis, you can slap a tax that can be correctly identified as perhaps maybe an income tax on those people who use it for business. Why don't you target these multilateral agencies like Twitter, like Facebook, like Nigeria is doing? We have come to the table with all these thoughts, but we are saying that it is not enough for us to just be talking among ourselves, NDC, MPP. We are saying create the enabling platform that will bring Ghanaians of all shades of opinion together to have a discussion that will lead to an adoption of a homegrown solution like the NDC did. Remember, the NDC's homegrown solution that was adopted at Senchi was what was taken to the World Bank just for policy credibility.
Right.
Remember, we did not even get up to 1 billion from the World Bank the IMF.
Because
when we joined the IMF.
You're out of ideas.
The intention was not to get money from the IMF. The intention was to get credibility for our own program, so that the IMF, acceptance of that program was going to assure the markets that this was a program the country was going to, put itself to.
You know what?
And it gave us the results by 2016.
Give some pause to your thoughts, gentlemen, especially as we've started with the subject of the E-levy. And yes, I can agree with you to a certain extent that last week you made mention of some alternatives. But especially when it comes to the E-levy, and as you're going to go toe-to-toe in Parliament on it, I want you to contemplate what some ordinary Ghanaians feel about the E-levy. Okada riders, this is what they had to share. Let's listen to this. Let's watch this.
Nana Akufo-Addo ne gba umia asuma me se me nkwaji aduane wo papa ye na wan send 150 cedis ama me ko en papa ye fo ni say sika no metua e wo mobile money me suma send ama wo mo me deliver fee am ba ma me 20 cedis no enu mu bi e na mo beti levy no ana say o mo betua levy no ama me ni edikan. My gather 10 cedis is a week. My 120 cedis. Me senia mame wa krasi. Me fruity region. Timi mame wa hono. Me senia mame wa krasi. 120 cedis no. Ye beti afri me 10 cedis na my car bomu no. And she said me customers no ama me ka ho a. Scanner ya me senia mame na wo hwe bia no. Me ntimi nya sa akwanya anye den. Ense ni sa sika no. Me kura motorbike makwa echire. Me moto na kwanya Ford. My friend me chama me moto ma blast tire nti me sra o say ni me sika na me nto tire o say ni sika ya tie afrim me kwa kwatwa sika na ama ni pakro no nso so no ma say ni ama ne phone so me nso so ya tie afrim ama me free one mo ameba no ya increase me fuel ya increase fuel no enti sika na nke beka me nchen bia be 20 cedis no ma twatwa taxes is ama aka 17 cedis ma ba beto 3 liter 3 later no Andrew sa 17 cedis no 17 cedis na aka no sa fuel no entimi mfa me free aplawa na say hohoi em makra my friend ni pafufro say send me 100 cedis and 150 cedis and so ya tinipa no ni nyina me bobusia o me bobusia na me dia tua tax me bobusia sika nketenkete a mejeji wa manfo wo no metua wo mu biomo me so ma ready say me tua no mata say ni ama me chairman so no scanner me say sign atwa ne ka no ya sati ska from me de animu munya di na me bisa na akufo ado ani Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia say ye na ye free north no ye nim say na ye fieti say Bawumia say ni sika ama na busiafo a ono de o sika nti ebia enka no truck pusher will push truck get scraps ye na ye adwuma mostly ye na ye adwuma okada business no enye se ya shada so na se adwuma na efo adwuma eni wo man ne munti na na akufo do ka kire me se ye tisika so ekwomo de ye be wan ka se sika wo kwasi mi botom ana wan ka kire me se sika e wo obi fufuro sika obi fufuro botom e na ye ba ba yi e di aye ne aye no ya hu since 2017 e bedru ne ye se ke be si uso a anka ye hye wo ma ena Johnson ase do ketia ka asem bi ameti wo masumu se wo ma me ewu na ya kasa wo ma me ewu na wo si wo nwu ye wada wo nsa wansa pobre start so mu ra window mu a obenyansafo ye bunu be na mbom ye nka na asem Thursday okada rider bia Thursday ye nye delivery mo bia wo be oda biare no for car na koto wa wo be oda biare no for car na koto Thursday motor rider bia ni wonu mu a ye be ye adwuma kwesi se ye ne na akufo ado beka amana ti ase se sika ni ye nibi.
All right, gentlemen. So those are the thoughts of some Okada riders. And just before you come in, just to give a bit of, because some people may not understand the local parlance. So in a nutshell, this person is saying that even for the transactions as an Okada rider or a bike operator, for little transactions, getting paid, wanting to change a tire, wanting to repay debts, if I have to use mobile money, I'm going to be suffering losses across the board. How do I make ends meet? In summary, that is what was said.
I think that...
Quick one, so because I think I would want to hear more from Dr. Dixon in his reaction to this.
Then let him speak.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
After you.
I thought that I was still on the floor, so I just wanted to wrap up. I think that people underestimate the wisdom of those we consider unschooled or unlettered and those we find to be doing, menial jobs on the street. But when you are fond of sitting at bases like I do, you will realize that we rather are looked at as people who do not understand the economy and the country that we live in. And they have very good reasons for believing so. And listening to this gentleman, I think these are questions that are even more superior than the questions that Dr. Bawumia asked the late Emisata. Dr. Bawumia should be speaking to these questions. He should be answering these questions, especially on this E-levy, and especially so when his fascination these days is about,
Digitization.
It is shocking.
It feeds into the economy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is shocking that in all this discussion that is ongoing, we have not heard him lead the charge like he has led charges in the past when it comes to government policy. I think he should. He should let us know how this is going to improve the digitization, agenda that he's championing. He must answer the questions of this poor man.
Dr. Dixon, how do you quickly react to this? This is a practical breakdown of what ordinary people, an Okada rider, can expect.
Yeah. So let me make some points very clear, and that is very important. The E-levy has made provisions for all of this. Now, let me also add that regardless of what we do, transactions will change once we introduce E-levy, in the sense that the first thing is that it is highly likely that I will pay direct to Papaye for my food and then rather send Okada. I would not give my money to the Okada and then the Okada goes to pay. I will pay because when you pay a merchant, that pays taxes. And this is in the bill. You would not pay the 1.75.
Doc, maybe you don't order food online. Most people do is that they have these dispatch riders. So they call the dispatch rider and ask the dispatch rider
Uber
to go buy the
Eats,
food.
for instance.
The only place, maybe you don't order online. I'm just trying to explain to you.
Just a sec. I want to agree. I mean, there are different dimensions to it, but quickly, because
those who do it, there are two options online. So you can either buy directly from Papaye, and Papaye will get a delivery. They will provide a delivery service which you will pay for. That is where you will pay the merchant, you will pay through the merchant, and also pay the delivery through the merchant. Right. But most people I know rather prefer to have these dispatch riders. They keep the dispatch riders on their phones. That's what I'm saying. When you don't sit at the base, you don't know what happens.
So let him make its point now.
Now,
thank you.
It is highly likely with the introduction of the E-levy that dispatch riders will then now have a merchant account because it's business. And if they are paying taxes to the country, the 1.75 will not apply to them because that is part of the bill.
Right.
Merchants who pay taxes will not then be double charged. And that is why that this Okada rider, let me put it that way, and mind you, there are first degree holders who are doing, Uber and all these things. So don't assume that all Okada riders. I mean, you were trying to say that.
No, he suggested they are not some of those who are unlettered.
And we doing menial jobs. It doesn't mean
so then we're on the same page.
Doing menial jobs.
So the key thing is that with the introduction of the E-levy, I mean, merchant-to-merchant transactions even now do not have some charges. If you go and you do the appropriate transaction through a merchant account. So in a nutshell, this will make some changes to how people transact. And one of the key things, even if you're going to do through your Okada rider, this Okada rider will now have what is appropriate, an appropriate merchant account, which would be making the needed, and this shows you how we expand the tax net.
But do you get a feel, just to level up on this, do you get a feel of how an ordinary person could be bombarded from different angles in terms of, let's say you lend me money, I borrow from you, you pay, you send me via Momo, and I do that sometimes. People are not lending them the money, but sometimes you have to. There are people here and there that, Charlie, you have to send them money. The person is going to withdraw. Of course, if it goes past the cap, they are going to face some penalties, or the levy will be taken. When you're going to repay the debt, of course, you have to pay up to what you took, minus not minus the charges in there. All of these transactions, I mean, are you imagining how people could be hit with this from different angles? Maybe the Okada rider, it may not follow through like that because some things may change. Maybe you will pay with cash and all of that. But are you looking at how the ordinary Ghanaian could suffer the impact? It will
impact us, regardless. And what it is that our lifestyles will change one way or the other. Because
and the lifestyles could change in the sense that I may, wanting to avoid too much of this, decide to go cash, and that in itself
and
I really think to the benefit of our economy, would it?
I really think that, listen, for instance, if I'm doing a transaction with another company in Kumasi, and it's a merchant-merchant transaction, that 1.75 right away is not there. And that is what we need to communicate to the Ghanaian people. That is what's in the bill.
Is that what you're failing to communicate to the Ghanaian people?
We are doing our bit, but then
they are throwing sand in your Gary. They are throwing sand in your Gary.
One thing I heard on one of your shows, for instance, was the fact that they were saying that if you are paid salary through mobile money, you'll be deducted. And that is not true.
Right.
So these are the things that are hurting the e-bill and the e-levy in the sense that, they are not being forthright and truthful with the Ghanaian people. Because provisions have been made to make sure that, the things go smoothly and you are not double charged. And I really think that it's unfortunate that,
I want us to spend a few minutes talking about the UTAG impasse, but before, maybe some 5-6 minutes. Before we get into that, I just want to find out. So as you go back to Parliament, right now we're unsure whether it's going to be Friday when the E-levy will be tabled again, and that in itself is a bit of a, should I say, a practice that is not necessarily the norm in Parliament. We should know when exactly it's going to be tabled on the floor of Parliament, but now it's a bit sketchy.
We're in a situation where our Speaker is not in the country.
You have deputy speakers.
We have, and that brings the unfortunate statement that Asidu Nketia made that,
about the slap.
Very unfortunate for somebody who's on a board of Parliament. I really think that he should be.
It's as if that is what it would take to ensure that the right things are done. If any deputy speaker attempts doing that, the person should be slapped.
Ideas and the rule of law starts from there. We are legislators. And it's unfortunate that a board member who's supposed to be adversarial and advising us appropriately should say that in public. And I really think that if I was him, I would resign. That's the right thing to do.
Are you sure that next time the e-levy is tabled, you'll be able to muster the numbers to get it? I mean, we've heard talk of, and we don't know how true this is, but even some members of Parliament pushing for certain roles before they join you to vote. And I don't want to mention names.
We wish to have an e-levy where the NDC is with us.
Will you be able to muster the numbers to get it?
Well, the numbers are there. We have our numbers. Okay. But the thing is, it comes back to one key thing. Without a speaker, it will be 137 on each. And that breaks the deal.
Okay.
I mean, without the speaker. Because these guys are bent on harming people.
So some 30 seconds just to, I noticed you wanted to say something. Yes, so we just talk briefly about it.
I just think that what you are speaking to was not addressing the concern of the Okada rider, especially in relation to when he says that I work so hard, I mobilize 10 Ghana cedis for a period of time, totaling 120 Ghana cedis.
It's only 100.
And I decide to send it to my mother, 120 Ghana cedis, who is in the village. How appropriate is it for that 120 Ghana cedis to attract?
Technically, it's not the 120, it's the 20 cedis or above. Yeah. It's not the whole 120 cedis that will be affected.
So he can do 90 today, 30 tomorrow.
He's just saying, why should he work so hard? Save 10 Ghana, 10 Ghana, 10 Ghana. Then maybe in a week or two, he raises 120. And that attracts a tax. Because he's just sending it to his mother, who is sick. You have not
so on the floor of Parliament.
Now, when he talks about misinformation on the bill, let us be clear that the misinformation started from the Minister of Finance. When the minister was saying one thing, his deputies were saying different things. After the passage, yes, of the appropriation bill. Remember that these clarifications, some of these clarifications, which still do not address all the questions raised, that you point to in the bill, came later. The bill came to the House after we had passed appropriation.
Right.
But before the bill was brought to the House, nobody really knew what it was going to cover and what it was not going to cover.
So now that you know.
And that is why even the deputies at the Ministry of Finance were contradicting each other. Now that we know, nobody I know on our side has spoken to the exemptions and the areas that are excluded. But we still continue to raise the issues that we think the bill, still doesn't address. Okay. The issues like the Okada riders, what are we taxing? What kind of tax is it? Because we know what our tax
So
laws
this conversation
are. Is it a direct
definitely
tax?
will
Is it an
continue.
indirect tax?
Al-Hassan,
What are we taxing? Are we taxing income? Are we taxing capital?
This E-levy,
those are the questions that are still not being asked.
This E-levy conversation definitely will continue on the floor of Parliament. But I don't want to, it would be remiss on my part to let go of you without delving into the UTAG bit. In 2 minutes, 1 minute each, your summary comments. I want you to focus that on UTAG. And the situation as it stands now, yesterday there was supposed to have been a meeting with the employer, government, and UTAG, the employee, with the NLC in the middle, arbitrating. UTAG boycotted that event. They didn't attend. And we know that some institutions like the UCC have those clauses in their books when it comes to 21 days and shutting down and all of that. 1 minute each, please. 1 minute. 40 seconds if you can. What's the way forward? I'll start with you, Dr. Dixon. The way forward.
Well, one thing is unfortunate. I personally don't like strikes. I really think that they should be at the table discussing. Not being at the table won't help us at all. And I also would plead that we come to a realization that times really are tough. Regardless of what the opposition might be saying or whoever might be saying, times really are tough. And I think that we are still better off as a nation than where we were before, and in the sense that the government has their, best of minds working on this to help us. But money is hard to come by, and I really think that they should be considerate of government. I mean, this is our current situation is not very favorable.
They should be considerate of government.
Well, I'm sure he meant to say regardless of what people in government are saying, times are hard. Because that's what we have been saying all along, that times are hard. So if you say regardless of what the opposition is saying, I don't really know what you meant. But regardless of what some people in government, either than yourself, may be saying, you agree with the majority of Ghanaians that times are hard. And there is no debate on that. I just think that UTAG has shown a lot of magnanimity over the period, because this issue they are striking over have been, in the works for a very long time now. They have shown and demonstrated, in my view, enough understanding and tolerance. And I believe that it will be in our interest as a nation for government to at least meet them halfway and persuade them, use language that is persuasive to get them back to their classroom. Instead of, the approach that I have seen so far, where the NLC, as usual, will always declare one side as being wrong. And mostly it is not the government side that is wrong. It's always the agitating parties that are wrong. I think once you do that consistently and you fail to get collaboration from the agitating parties, you only have yourself to blame. And we have also heard from the leadership of UTAG how, for example, the finance minister and some other members in government have treated them in the past. That has entrenched their positions. And if we have time, I would have gone into some
unfortunately
of the
we don't.
Also
You've done way over 1 minute.
With regards to this E-levy and how cooperation is difficult in Parliament.
Gentlemen, we are grateful that you always join us. Dr. Dixon Adomako Kisi, Member of Parliament, Anyaso Utom. Thank you so much for coming, doing us the honors. And Al-Hassan Suini, Member of Parliament, Tamandil North. Thank you as well for joining the conversation. Well, we've set the pace for the conversation that comes up next, our next big story. It has to do with the University of Health and Allied Sciences. And they are 10 years already. What has been their impact in terms of national life? And beyond that, how do they react to the UTAG saga? All of that up next after the break. Stay.